Welcome to Women in Leadership Talk, where you'll hear from successful women who are empowering other women with their stories of adversity, resiliency, and success. And here is your host, Vicki Bradley, founder and CEO of Women in Leadership Empowered.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Thank you for joining us. I know you hear this from me every time you listen to the podcast, but I am super grateful to have you chiming in from 50 plus countries. That means the world to us. And to keep us growing and going, please do leave us a review so we know how and what you think of the podcast and the guests that we're sharing with you. So without further ado, I have a wonderful guest joining us today. I have Jane McCarthy. Jane, thank you so much for calling in from LA. How are you?
I'm great. It's so nice to be with you, Vicki.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. And I'm going to give our audience a little bit of background on you so they know why you and I are having this conversation today. So Jane is a brand strategist with over a decade of experience in advertising. She's collaborated with both global and local brands in a variety of categories, from energy to confection, serving brands like Sweet Tart, Southern California Edison, Boys and Girls Club of America, Dole as another one. Her emphasis on leveraging archetypes to unlock a brand's true essence and power. In 2024, Jane and her sister Kate started the Goddess Office, which I can't wait to hear about, a platform of elevating women and the archetypal feminine in business. Now, she does have some personal passions that I think some of you will love and find interesting. So she's very much into mythology, astrology, tarot cards, enneagrams, and she's done a lot of research in these areas. And so today we're going to jump into those goddess archetypes, including her book, The Goddess Guide to Branding. So Jane, welcome. Thanks so much for being here. And let's jump in and talk about what led you to do the work that you're doing, and how did you get interested in mythology and astrology and all these wonderful things?
So I joined the ad world because I was interested in creativity in business and creativity in communications. And so I started my career at an ad agency in West Hollywood and worked on many various clients through the years. And then as I was an account leader and I was really managing a team, I then also was always doing strategy for those brands. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I hit on through that experience was the power of finding your archetype or that central character or personality to unlock the whole energy of a brand that can really connect with people and resonate with them in their hearts. And so I was utilizing through my marketing experience archetypes that were created by Carl Jung. And he has a set of 12 key characters, such as the hero or the everyman, which is like the guy or gal next door, and the jester, the comic. And so those are what we were using. And then on my personal side, kind of what I was personally interested in, at the same time I was doing my advertising career, I was exploring different archetypal systems like astrology and the Enneagram, and taking workshops on the side to learn more about those systems because I was just naturally drawn to them, and the self-discovery that went through thinking about myself and in relationship to archetypes and my own narrative and where my own gifts were. So I was on that journey of personal self-discovery while I was also doing this branding work. And then one day, it all kind of came together when I realized that I felt there was a gap in terms of archetypes that expressed rich, powerful, feminine energy. Okay. Because when I said those examples of the hero or the leader or the jester, even if those aren't gender specific, they just seem to lead you in the masculine energetic. And then another examples of those are the caregiver and the lover. And so I feel like the feminine often was getting pinpointed in kind of either the caregiver or the lover. And to me, there's just so much broader tapestry that is true of feminine and also the lives of women and what we bring. And so I wanted to explore a different system. And that's when I hit on Jean Shinoda Bolen's book, Goddesses in Every Woman. And Jean Shinoda Bolen maps out these different ancient goddess energies that are timeless. So they're not stuck in ancient Greece or Rome, but actually they speak to the truths of who we are and the deep, powerful energy that we have inside of us. And so she talks about Athena, the strategist and the analyst. And she talks about Diana or Artemis, the huntress, the pioneer energy. She talks about Venus, the creative and the bringer of beauty to the world. And so to me, I thought, oh, this is a fabulous system for branding and to think about brands through the feminine lens. And then what I then realized is, well, this also has relevance for women in business and thinking about our own archetypes and how we bring our gifts forward. And so that was how I got started in kind of my journey so far.
Wow. Okay. You said so many things I love. So one, yes, you're 100% what you were describing there about like the jester, not necessarily male, but masculine nuances, 100%. And most of our work world does have that masculine nuance to it. And so I love, love, love that you're bringing the feminine energy, but also the language to be able to talk more fluidly about it. And just as a quick side note, when I was building my business, Women in Leadership Empowered, one of the things that was really important to me was color, and it being very feminine in color, but very powerful. And so, but now you've just brought in a whole nother level, Jane, with even that nuance of the expression of energy that can come with that brand. And I'm a big believer that branding happens personally as well as in a business that you're creating, but it's what are those values? What do you want to be known for? So I love already what you've said. That's beautiful. So you talked a little bit about figuring out your own narrative. So can you dive into that a little bit more? Like, share with us what you believe your narrative is and how you have navigated and figured that out so that it really aligns with who you are.
Yes. So I think that we're always wanting to understand the meaning of our lives and our purpose. And it helps us to have a sense of where we are in our own journey and how the context that we're in makes sense. And then how we can utilize who we are to do what we came here to do. And what the inborn talents that we have, that we explore them, and that I always think reach our potential sounds a little bit too almost stale. People always talk about like maximizing potential, but I do think that most of us feel we want all that we are to have a place that it gets expressed through the course of our lives. And so for me, I was very interested in, well, what are the core archetypes that are guiding my life? And so just to give you a sense of within the goddess world, my core energy is Maiden Persephone. And she's the goddess of imagination and possibility. And so that is a very youthful energy. It's an energy of renewal. And she stays connected to the childlike wonder that we sometimes lose as we get jaded. So, and kind of just in the adult world. And so I think to understand that that's a gift of mine, then how do I bring that to people? So one of the things I think about is wanting to present new possibilities. So I'm always saying, well, what about this? And what about this? And how do we leverage our imaginations to consider better than we have for ourselves? Because we just couldn't fathom it. And so to kind of open the box, and not just like out of the box, but it's just like open into a greater field of possibility. And so that's really powerful to me. And then the other archetype, and I do believe we have multiple that we work with. We may, Jean Shidona Bolin, this analyst, says we all have a core goddess, but then we also bring in these other goddess energies to inspire us, and so that we can meet the requirements of our life chapter by chapter, because we do have chapters and different things are asked of us in these different periods. And so Venus, the goddess of creativity and beauty, is also very core to who I am and central to, I think, my role. And so I think of that as being, how can I inspire people to create and be creative with their lives, with how they come to their business, and through branding, for example, it's very creative. Like, how do I want to express this? You mentioned color or a logo, but also how do I talk about things? How do I communicate? And that can happen on a brand business level, but it can happen in any role that you're in, because it's like, well, how do I show up today? That's or right. What is the special thing that I'm doing that other people aren't doing, but it's true to what I have to give, and it sets me apart in a good way. Or what is my workwear? It's like I do a whole thing with goddess workwear, because it's about getting into the energy that you want to bring. So what color am I wearing, or what style am I wearing? It's about, well, I'm going to wear red because I want to demonstrate passion, and ferocity, or I want to do pink because I want to get into like a sweetness. So all of these things come together, and it's about living a more creative life day by day as you do your purpose. So those are the two goddesses that I'm working with. And I always want to frame my narrative in those terms of, like, where's Venus living in this? Where's Maiden Persephone? Because these are the energies that are really mine, and that I want to make sure that I'm bringing to the table. And then in my unique way that only Jane would. So it's just I think working with archetypes gives you a language to think about yourself. And also, rather than saying, what is Jane going to do today? I always think, like, how can I bring more Venus? Which means, how can I bring more creativity, or how can I create more possibility? So it's a way to just kind of get outside of all that I am and into, like, how do I bring more of this particular thing?
Oh, I love that. I love that. And when we bring more of our natural innate being, we're happier, right? We're more in flow, and all of those, we're more productive, and more joy, everything just ripples from that, because you're being who you're meant to be, but you're putting yourself in positions to experience more of that.
Absolutely. And I do believe that we attract what we radiate, so we attract people who are like-minded or can resonate with us when we're being authentic. We will magnetize people who are with that frequency or like that vibe. So that's just reinforcing who we are from an original standpoint.
Yeah, I love that. And that's not to say that, you might have off days, because we all do, but yes, majority of the time, that's where you're resonating. Which is, I think that's so important, what you're saying, and even what you're attracting or what you're repelling even, right? And noticing, like, when you repel certain situations or people. So, wow, I love all this. I think it's great. I hosted a workshop just recently for our mastermind group, and we were talking about your personal brand, and more from that lens of, what are your values? What are your strengths? I love how you put the language to it, but we were also in that time together talking about, what do you think people say about you, and what do you say about you, and where are those gaps, right? Because that's back to what you're talking about with bringing more Venus in, because it should be people who know you, they're working with you because they know, like, and trust you, but they're in alignment with what it is you're putting out, right? And so that becomes even more important to understand who you are being.
Yes. I think that feedback is important. And, seeing how people are relating to you gives you a lot of information. about how successful you are at emanating the energy and uplifting people in the way that you're intending to. So I always believe in, paying attention to the responses you're getting, but that doesn't mean that what someone says you are is what you are.
No,
Well,
no,
and
absolutely.
so there's kind of a dance between the feedback you're getting and then also what you know about yourself intuitively, which is your inner knowing, which nobody has but you.
Yeah. From my perspective, it's more about are you showing up the way you're intending? And are
Right.
people recognizing that? Right? Because no, it's not important what they think about you. It's important what you think about you. But are you resonating at the desired level that you're wanting to resonate at?
Totally. And when we're participating, especially in a work setting, the aim is that what we're intending to do has that positive impact, right? And we do want to check to make sure that that is occurring. And if not, then we want to look at new strategy, new tactics. And that's true if you're a person, but also if you're a business, right?
Yeah.
It's like if our aim is to serve people in this way and they're not having that reaction or they're not feeling served in that way, then how do we pivot and evolve in order to better connect with what we're trying to offer?
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. Yes, that's absolutely right. Because there is that disconnect if it's not working, right? And so it's like, how do you bring that back? So let's talk a little bit about feminine energy. I mean, you've mentioned it a couple of times, and we've talked about the goddesses, but especially in today's environment, what role are you seeing that feminine energy play in our world?
So I think that certainly within the business context is I felt that there was some messaging when I was coming up in my 20s where it was like women need to be in their masculine when they're in their work, and that's how you succeed. And I felt like that was a dominant cultural kind of attitude. I felt, well, what you talked about is we need to be natural with ourselves. And so if we naturally have a ton of feminine energy and you're being asked to spend most of your day in your masculine, I don't see how that works through time, because then you're out of alignment with your own nature. Right. And so that doesn't really work. And so I felt that I knew that there was something with that message that wasn't right, because I felt it sent an idea that if you aren't that way naturally, then you don't have success in your DNA, which I just think is not true. And so in my experience, for example, I don't think it is getting into one energy all day long. I actually think that we shift energies throughout the day and actually minute by minute. So the example I'll use is giving a presentation in a boardroom and being very assertive with your ideas. And so there is this element of assertion and strength and all those things, which by the way, I think are feminine, but in the polarity concept that people have, they would say that was more being in your masculine. Whether I buy that or not, I'm actually not sure, to be honest. But then I just want to offer that there's another energy that might be described as more receptive and listening, is the person sitting at the table, receiving the presentation and taking it in and feeling intuitively, along with looking at data. And then while I'm giving that presentation, I'm also utilizing energy where I'm feeling into the room, right? And I'm intuiting, how are people responding to what I'm sharing? Do I need to evolve how I talk in order to reach these people? Well, so many things are happening at once. And so there's a dance of the feminine and masculine going on minute by minute, even simultaneous. So I want to kind of dispel any myth that you have to be in your masculine at your work. I don't buy that. I think that it's a dance, and I think that we work with the energies that are called for at the moment, but also with the energies that are true to us. And if we are a more receptive listening person, then finding a role where we get to do that more, or finding the strength of that within the role we're in, is very powerful.
Well, a few things I would share on that. You're absolutely right. And I don't think it's changed fully. I think it's becoming a bit more, it's being acknowledged a bit more, but definitely for women, it has been being that masculine energy, and it is a price that you pay by doing that. So when you were talking earlier, when you stay in that state for long periods of time, you are out of alignment with the core of who you are, right? And we are all made up of both masculine and feminine, to your point. And so it's yes, it is how you do that dance. There are still situations I find, both for men and women, where they get caught in that that thought process that they have to be masculine in order to sit at the table, in order to break through the glass ceiling. And even for men that are more on the feminine side, it's very difficult for them to be in a heavy masculine. So there is this harmonizing that can be really beautiful. And I think that we're in a place in our world today where that becomes even more important, that we are in alignment with all aspects of who we are, not what we think society, you have to be, the fist pumper on the table or yelling and screaming. You can also be equally as effective by being softer in that approach. And I know a lot of people would disagree with that, but just my own personal experiences, I spent many, many years in corporate environments, and I resided in that heavy masculine energy because that's what was required. And it was a huge cost to me physically, but also mentally and emotionally. And so that alignment, it's recognizing when we're out of that alignment. And where we are today, and this is where I'd love to hear your thoughts, feminine, we need the feminine to really help soften the things that are happening in our world right now.
So I think, Brene Brown talking about vulnerability. And also there's this quote by Oprah that I love, that leadership is about empathy. Great leaders that I've seen in corporate settings are really good at assessing what's going on with their team and thinking with empathy about what each person on the team is doing, and how can they nurture their talents. I mean, this is part of leadership, is really understanding the people on your team. And those are different from hard driving. It doesn't, elements. And so I do think that what you're talking about the blend and harmonizing is a greater picture of, frankly, the truth of what it is to lead. And also, we know that there may be one archetype of, this is the CEO, but I think we're starting to see that widen and expand. And we're starting to see more than one archetype for what a successful leader looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree with you on that. I think it's been slow, but I'm a bit older than you. And so coming up into the corporate ranks, I mean, that was always sort of the challenge. And so it's now, how do we break those myths, right? How do we, which is one of the things I want to talk to you about, because oftentimes from a leadership perspective, that's where scarcity comes in, right? There's not enough room to have more than one woman, or these beliefs that are put on us, which is not true. Those are complete myths. But it's, how do we help people overcome that thinking around the scarcity paradigm and shifting more into the abundance and what the possibilities are?
Yeah. And I think that the scarcity mindset is something that we come up in as kids, a lot of us. And there's just attitudes around competition and a fixed pie that everyone has to get their piece of versus a growing pie. And so we have a certain amount of what you might call subconscious programming around this. And so there can be kind of a knee-jerk reaction. One thing that, in writing this book, The Goddess Guide to Branding, I interviewed over 22 female founders about their business. And one of the things that I found with founders in general, not just women, is that if they were on a very sincere quest and mission for helping people in their lives, they were actually interested in other people who are on that mission too. And so in the past, that might be considered a competitor. But these people, some of these founders talked about actually collaborating with other companies and leaders who were doing something in the same space because they were sharing that mission. And they said, if you're for helping, like an example of, I heard a founder talk about, he has a business around grass-fed meat. And he was saying if there's other people who are trying to get more options and availability of grass-fed meat, that's such a small percent of the overall market. It's like more the merrier. We need more people on this quest. And so I think that collaboration and cooperation is abundance mindset.
Yeah.
And it's like trusting these are areas of opportunity that are big, and we can each bring what we have to share to the table. And so that the knee-jerk reaction isn't like, oh, that's somebody doing the same thing I am, therefore they're a competitor, and no, there's no possibility there. And so I think that was really interesting for me to just witness. I witnessed that, a different mindset. And I heard about this in other spaces where it was a niche within the mainstream offerings. And so anybody who was growing that niche and a part of offering something healthier, then they wanted to work with them, and they were teaming up to do more than they could do alone. And so I do think that there's a movement toward that. And I think one of the words we've been talking about in this chat is alignment. Yeah. And when you're aligned with what you really want to bring and you're fully behind it, it's easier to get with people who are also in alignment similarly to you. And so it isn't quite the old competition mindset. So I think just seeing that was really informative for me. So it wasn't just academic, but rather just seeing that, oh no, this is a mindset that's out there. And it feels like the wave of the future to me.
Love it, love it, love it. And I love the examples that you shared. I'm actually one of those people, because I said this probably 5 years ago. I put it on a vision board, only eating grass-fed beef. and I mean, that's an example, but like so true what you're saying. And sometimes people are shocked by that when you are collaborating and co-creating with others. And so I love that. And I love how you tied it together with abundance, because it is, I mean, the reality of it is we are better together than we are alone, because you can carry a lot more, right? And do a lot more, have a lot more impact when we do it collectively and together.
And we can be inspired by what other people are doing.
Yeah.
And it can, and sort of rather than being threatened, and I'm not trying to pretend business realities away, but I do think when I work with branding clients, for example, I always want to look at I call them other players. I don't even like to call them competitors. I'm like, what are the other players in the market doing? And then what are they doing that we could do our own way and be inspired by? And so sometimes you get great ideas from people who are doing what you're doing.
I love it. I love it. That's very smart. Very smart, actually. Like when you were just saying that, I was thinking about like how many coaches are out there, right? And coaching is becoming a huge industry, but we all bring a different flavor, a different nuance, a different experience level than another coach. Doesn't mean one's right or one's wrong or one's better, one's worse. It just means we bring different things. And so it's up to you then to make that decision on who resonates with you. But I'm a firm believer there is enough for all of us, for sure. And there is. It's a big world, right?
It is. And there are still people who have needs that aren't being met.
100%.
There's still need out there. And I do personally believe that we each have very particular unique gifts. As you said, you might be doing the same exact role, and there's a million people who do the same role, but the way you do it and it really is like yourself when you're in that role, it's unlike anything else. And so there is no competition in that sense.
That's right. 100%. 100%. And just the example you shared with us about your own approach, right? And the narrative that you use, that's very unique and very different and specific to you versus somebody else who does branding and advertising, right?
Exactly. And there are plenty of strategists who are led by analytics. and they're very scientific based, and that's never going to be me, but it's totally valid what they're doing. My way isn't better. It's just my way, and it offers one way of getting to your brand, and there are so many roads. And so I think that's the other thing, is it's not an either or.
Yes.
It is the both and. It's like, oh, there's this and there's this. And I'm just part of the many options that someone would have when they think about how they get to their brand.
I love it. I love it. So let's I know we're getting close on our time together, but can we take just a couple of minutes and let's talk about your book, The Goddess Guide? So who is that?
Yes.
Who should be reading this?
The Goddess Guide to Branding. So I wrote it with my sister, Kate McAndrew, who's a venture capitalist, and she's very passionate about funding female-led startups. And so she came with that attitude. And then for me, I was really interested in giving women, anyone with a small business or a female entrepreneur, the tools to create a clear brand identity without having to hire a branding agency, because many people who have small businesses don't have that kind of capital. And so if you want to get clear on your brand, and the key focus in the book is finding your core archetype, which is really the source point for everything, and then getting to the heart and the soul of your business. Like at the soul of this offering, what is deeply motivating for, what motivates this business? Why am I doing this? And what can I keep coming back to over and over again about the core of the inspiration, why I'm doing what I'm doing? So for example, for me, it's inspiring women with the possibilities for what they can create. Mm-hmm. So that may sound obvious, but for me, I keep coming back to that. And that it's a way to make sure that I'm on my path, doing what I'm planning to do. And then we get to the gift, which is the impact you want to make in people's lives, and how you want them to feel after they come away with an experience with you. Because feeling and emotion is really the connective tissue for people resonating with your brand and your offering. And so we want to get clear on what that is. And then we do some explorations around style. I'm not a designer. I recommend that people work with a graphic designer if they need to build a website, etc. But there's strategy work and there's clarity to get to before you're at that point. Mm-hmm. And so this book is here to help you with that. If you want to elevate or evolve your business branding, or you're just starting something and you want to get clear.
Awesome. Wow. That's very powerful, and a great way. Anybody who's thinking about starting a business, like really getting to the heart and soul of what it is you're wanting to do and trying to do. So Jane, where can people find the book? Where can they find you?
Yeah. So the book is on Amazon, The Goddess Guide to Branding. And then I'm on Substack at goddessoffice.substack.com. And I'm serving up inspiration for working with purpose and style, inspired by the goddess, and also just by what I'm encountering in my own work, and sharing some insights as the days progress.
Nice. Wow. Thank you so much for joining me today. And really, I really love the way that you position things today, because there was a little bit of mythology. There was a lot of creativity, and also a lot of science as well. So it's bringing all those pieces together in a very harmonized, beautiful way. And I love always talking about the energies, of how we're showing up in the world. I think that's very powerful. And sometimes we walk out the door and we forget how we're showing up. So I think this is a great way to get people to look at themselves differently.
And I like what you said. We have our off days. You fall off the horse, you just get back on the next day. It's not about being perfect all the time. But we keep going.
Exactly. That is the goal, right? Keep going, keep evolving.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jane. I'm so grateful for you for being here with us today. And I want to thank our audience for being here. We know you have a choice. And so thank you for chiming in. Please do share this episode with somebody who is starting a new business, somebody who has a business, they're looking to evolve where it's at. Maybe they're not completely happy that their message is resonating the way they wanted it to. And so this would be a great episode to help them start to get some of that clarity that Jane was talking about. And you can visit the Women in Leadership Empowered website, take our free leadership quiz. It'll give you insight as to how you're showing up when you walk out that door every morning. But also there's a couple of free mini quizzes that you can tap into that'll give you some inspiration. So thank you everybody for joining us again today. And we will see you at the next Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for WIL Talk, sponsored by Women in Leadership Empowered. To learn more about our programs, please visit www.wilempowered.com. We look forward to seeing you in our community.